Hello everyone, my name is Brex, and welcome to my Monster Hunter Wilds review. This has been severely delayed by procrastination and my own stupidity. This video should have come out 2 or 3 weeks ago, but it's become this thing where I just kept adding stuff every time I thought I was done, and eventually I was like, well, Title Update 1 is almost out, so I may as well wait for that, and then include it in the review. It's a whole mess. Anyway, I'd like to start off by saying, I fucking love this game. I am a Third Fleet hunter. I started Monster Hunter with 3 Ultimate, and have been in love with the series ever since, so that would make it about 13 years. It has been a hyperfixation of mine for a very long time. I feel like I need to say this because there's a good chunk of this video that's going to sound like I'm just complaining, and that's because I am, but that's because it's far easier to talk about the things I don't like than the things I do. Because the things I do like are just everything else about the game. Anyway, let's get into this. This video is going to be long enough as it is. First, let's get into the overall story and characters. I like they're getting proper story in these games with characters and voice acting. I love that Capcom is finally doing something with concepts like Arshan Ancient Civilizations and the Equal Dragon Weapon. It's still confusing as to what is canon and what's not. That's very intentional. I'll probably get into that more in a different video, like when I'm talking about Zoshia more specifically in like the monster review video. But Monster Hunter lore is intentionally told in an unreliable narrator type of way, where it's stuff that's like myth and legends in the world. So what is and is not true is kind of up to debate. So it's kind of hard to get into that. I do think they're still struggling to find their footing a little bit when it comes to stories in these games. This game's pacing was way too fast in my opinion. In the span of like an hour or two of gameplay, Nata flips from having a blood rage and wanting to murder Arkveld with his bare hands to saying, he's just like me for real, don't kill him, right after finding out that Arkveld has decided its life purpose is to kill anything that moves. Like, what the hell is even that? I feel like the story that took place in low rank alone should have been stretched out across low and high rank, with more character growth moments and less whiplash. It seems like this rushed character development of Nata flipping from one extreme to another in a heartbeat has led to a lot of the community finding him more annoying than anything else, but I don't think that was the intention. That said, other than that, I think the story was great, and I'm very excited to see where it goes in updates and the eventual G-Rank expansion, especially with them playing coy about Gemma and Fabius, being all but confirmed to be Little Miss Forge and Ace Lancer from Monster Hunter 4, though for a long time I kept thinking that Fabius was going to be the Caravaneer, but when people pointed out, no, it's the Ace Lancer, I was like, oh yeah, you're probably right about that, that makes way more sense. I'm excited to see more returning characters in the expansion, hopefully. It would be awesome to see the Guildmarm again, who I recently found out has been canonically named Sophia, and maybe we could see the Trovarians. It would be cool if we got to see the Man or Gemma's adoptive Trovarian dad again. My real genuine hope is that our G-Rank takes us back to Dundorma, and our new map or maps that we get from the expansion are going to be returning maps from old games, because I would like to see more returning maps. That's what I want most personally to be the direction we go with the expansion. If not that, I'd like to see it lean pretty heavily into more frontier stuff. But it could also do its own thing entirely, and I'd probably be fine with that. I'd definitely be fine with that. I just love everything that is Monster Hunter. Moving on, though. I do also have a problem with the pacing of the game progression. Not just the story, but like the mechanical progression of things. I think the game felt way too fast-paced. Like, the campaign went by super quick. In other Monster Hunter games, you have key quests and urgent quests, and the difficulty ramps up fast enough that you feel like you actually need to upgrade your gear to be able to progress. But in this game, it felt like they just got rid of the key quests, and it was just urgent quest, urgent quest, urgent quest, boom, roll credits. The difficulty ramped up so slowly as well that I went through the story, both low and high rank, with only 3 armor sets. In previous games, I got through each rank with 3 armor sets minimum. Sometimes I would need like 5 or 6 sets to get through a rank. But in this game, I spawned in, I farmed Chatacabra because I liked how that set looked more than the default one. Then I progressed to New Udra, which was most of low rank, got that armor set for more fashion and comfort reasons than feeling like I actually needed to upgrade, and also I was trying to actively slow the pace of the game down. For low rank, that's fine, but going into high rank, I got to Ebonio Dogoron still wearing low rank armor. And I still didn't really feel like I needed to upgrade. I did, because I actively wanted to slow down the pace of the game, which, as a side note, I also did every single side quest they gave us for that same purpose, slowing down the pace of the game. But yeah, in an attempt to slow down the game's pace, I farmed Ebony Odogoron's set, despite not really feeling like I needed to. Mind you, I was most of the way through high rank in low rank armor, and proceeded to beat the entire game in that Ebony Odogoron armor. I beat high rank with only one high rank armor set. And I feel like I probably could have done it in my low rank armor? Maybe not, but it feels like that could have been the case. I feel like the difficulty should have jumped way more between low and high rank, making me feel like I actually needed to upgrade way earlier, and then ramping up enough as I went through to make it so that I needed to upgrade 1 or 2 more times at least. Now, they did make it way easier to farm sets. When it used to take 10 plus hunts to make a set, now it only takes about 3 or 5 on average. I'm actually perfectly fine with that, especially with the bloat that layered armors have added to the grind, but I just wish the difficulty ramped up more sharply through the story so that I actually felt like I needed to pay attention to my gear rather than just upgrading for the sake of style and comfort. I didn't even know the Ebony Odogoron set had burst on it until after I beat the game, because I didn't feel the need to pay attention to armor skills because the game was too damn easy for me to need to bother. And speaking of the game being too easy, another thing I'm not a fan of, and I've mentioned this in my previous video, which was more of a rant, my video where I was reviewing Rise, I think there's nothing easier than not having to do anything at all. For example, there is no tracking or prep. They have once again decided to abandon the hunter part of the title, Monster Hunter. And you do not need to track down monsters or prep for hunts in this game. You can even cook full meals in the middle of a fight, and don't need to bring Farcasters to dip out of a fight at any moment. It leads to a couple funny moments, but I think it is a detriment to the game as a whole. This feels weird, especially with the fact that they did bring back Scout Flies, but they brought back the part of Scout Flies that I don't think anyone gave a shit about, and that is it highlighting collectibles around the world, and I don't like that. It's just annoying. I loved Scout Flies as a way of, hey, you actually have to go and find footprints and traces of the monster and use that to track it down, and I would love to see that system brought back and improved on. But they've just abandoned tracking entirely. Now, I know some people want to go back to paintballs, but that has its own problems, and you aren't really tracking the monster, you're just running around like a chicken with your head cut off until you find it, and then you place a paintball on it that just tells you where it is. That's not a very engaging system. I want actual tracking. And they could have implemented it into the Palamutes and Seikrets with making it so that you can find a track and you can have your Seikret sniff the track and be like, hey, Seikret, lead me to where the monster is based on that. It could be that you aren't even really necessarily doing it, it's your Seikret doing it, but mechanically the tracking is still there. I would love that. Technically, they wouldn't even really need to bring back Scout Flies for that, but yeah. Moving on. The actual gameplay is far less over-the-top, cartoony, and Power Rangers-ified than Rise was, which I drastically prefer. I think Rise is probably my least favorite of the 3 New World games. But I still miss the feeling of actually tracking my prey, marking it, and hunting it down. I miss needing to prepare for the hunt, or suffer the consequences of being unprepared and at a disadvantage. I miss the more difficult hunts being brought down to the wire, where I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to kill the monster before I ran out of potions. I miss poison being an actual threat because you had limited antidotes and potions, so it ate away at that and actually made poison a factor of difficulty rather than a mild annoyance. That's only made worse by them making it so that things like poison and bleed can't actually kill you. They only take you down to like 20% health before they stop affecting you. Close clutch moments are so much rarer in this game, and yes, I do realize that it could get better with Master Rank, but it feels like the only way for things to be difficult now, with, infinite restocks in mind, is for monsters to have insane one-shot attacks and crazy one-shot stun-lock combos. Otherwise, there's just no difficulty because you have infinite resources. The stakes are gone, and as a result, largely, so is my investment in the gameplay. And it's just a confusing thing too, because as the series has gone on, with the environment being flushed out far more, with things like Vigor Mentals, Chill Mentals, Dung Beetles, and piles of dung that instantly become dung bombs, Flash Bugs instantly becoming flash bombs when you gather them, Pure Wasps for if you didn't bring antidotes. So much has been added to the environment, and it feels kinda redundant, because we can just infinitely restock items in the camp. I feel like now would be the perfect time to get rid of infinite restocks in order to incentivize people to actually pay attention to, know, and use the environment stuff they've given us better. And yes, I realize even if they did change that on the smaller camps, the main camps are on the map now, and it wouldn't make sense to not be able to do everything there. But what they could have done is make it so that you can only do a full restock there, and you can't fast travel without having a Farcaster on you. That could have been a middle ground. I don't know. The new mentality around prepping seems hard baked into the design of the game with the loss of the quest system and the main camps being on the maps, so maybe it's too late to be wanting to go back, but I still do think we've lost something special as a result. That aside, and speaking of losing something, let's get into some smaller gripes I have. First off, they changed the gear for Blanganga. It's not so bad with the armor, but this is just something I've noticed that they've done. They've probably done it with some others too, but this is the only one I've noticed personally. They changed how the Blanganga gear looks, and it does seem like most people prefer the new designs, but me personally, I don't like losing old designs. Period. There's probably someone out there who super loved the old Blanganga armor and weapons. The new weapon designs aren't bad, but they could have added these new designs with a new monster rather than replacing the old ones. I personally am not a fan of getting rid of the old ancient Aztec Mayan look of the old weapons. I thought they looked really cool, and I'm sad to see them go. That said, this isn't nearly as bad as the lazy slap-on designs some weapons got subjected to in World, but I think one of the main reasons people hated that wasn't just that they seemed unoriginal and lazy, but they were also replacing old designs that people loved, and I understand that. Personally, I think the loss of the Panzer Tank Tigrex light bowgun is a travesty, even though I don't use light bowgun, and I don't want to see more things like that happening as the series goes forward, so I hope this isn't a sign of things to come. Moving on. Many of you may have noticed, like I did, that monsters like Rathian now have the signature moves of their subspecies. Rathian can now do the figure 8 tailspin from Pink Rathian and the big bracing firebomb, though a weaker version of it, from Gold Rathian. Moves that were unique to those variants, and having them put on base Rathian makes it feel like those variants would be redundant and not serve a purpose anymore. I don't know how to feel about this. On one hand, if we're just getting rid of subspecies that are recolors with 1 or 2 new moves like Pink and Azure, I'm fine with that, but we also see base Mizutsune spouting fire like Soulseer while not being a Soulseer, not bringing back the unique visual design of Soulseer, not bringing back the aspect of Soulseer being blind and using its bubbles for echolocation, and all that. Just doesn't feel right. Like, are we never gonna see Soulseer or the Metal Wraths again? I think this is especially weird because we have Fulgur Anjanath and Ebony Odogron without the base versions of those monsters. I don't see why they couldn't have just added Soulseer and skipped base Mizutsune for this game. It's a confusing collection of decisions, and I don't know what to take from it all. On that topic, though, I've noticed that there's a rare chance to run into differently colored Arcvelds. I've run into one that had like a bluish sheen that was still mostly white that I haven't noticed on other tempereds, so it's not just a tempered thing. And I've seen clips of people fighting Arcvelds that were completely black. And according to what I can find, that wasn't a mod. That is something that can really happen in-game. So that has me wondering, is it possible that that is going to be replacing the basic recolor type subspecies? Like, maybe there's a rare chance that when you hunt a Rathian, it will be a pink one, or when you're hunting a Rathalos, it will be an Azure one. If so, I could see that being a cool mechanic, but it would lead to the loss of their unique armor sets and gear. That's just speculation, though. It's a weird collection of decisions, and I don't know what to take from it. Anyway, moving on to some other things I'm not necessarily negative on, but not a huge fan of. I don't love the changes they've done to Hammer. It seems like most people like them, but I don't. We all know they've made some changes to every weapon in this game, but Hammer's changes are a bit more special to me because I mained it in World, and I do like some of it. I like that the basic combo now chains into something, so it feels like it has more of a purpose. I like the Mighty Charge as a move. I find it very fun, and has led to a lot of great memes and clips. But I feel like the running charge has been absolutely gutted. You can't take that momentum and turn it into the spinning move. You only have one thing you can do out of it, and it's the least satisfying form of the big slam. Just one big slow womp with no weight or momentum behind it. It's the one that looks like rather than slamming the hammer down, you just lift it up and let gravity do the work. What's the point of charging it if that's how the move is going to feel? I'd much rather have the powered up slam we had in World. And speaking of the spinning move, you can't do it out of the running charge now. It's been moved to be something you do in the middle of a combo with no momentum leading into it, and I kind of hate that. I hear some people say they like it because now they don't accidentally go into it when they don't want to. But they could have fixed it by making it a move that comes out from, like, pressing circle while you're doing the running charge rather than just releasing the charge. That would have fixed the problem, while still keeping the identity of the weapon and my second favorite move it has ever had. My first favorite move is the flipping move that you do from sliding attacks. Not to mention, these new moves make it so that I no longer feel like I need to do the Big Bang combo. It's never opportune, because it always feels quicker, easier, and more damaging to go into the Mighty Charge. Also, I do like that we actually have sliding areas again to do the sliding flip attack again, like we had in World but was kinda not so present in Rise. But I kinda liked how that was implemented in Rise's hammer, not actually needing to get lucky with where the monster decides to fight you, but being able to do it anywhere using wire bugs. Which is something I really wish I had back in World while fighting like Fatalis and other monsters that are only on flat areas you can't slide on. I straight up abandoned hammer for those fights because of that. Which does remind me of another thing I would like to see them bring back, maybe in the Master Rank expansion or whatever, but like, while I don't necessarily want wire bugs back, I think switch skills were really cool. I think being able to customize the moveset of the weapon to your playstyle was fucking awesome, and if they added that, that could very easily fix all of the problems I have with hammer, because you could do that in Rise. You could customize the way the hammer played. I liked some of it, and I didn't like some of it. So I would just customize it to be the way I liked it, and I had a lot of fun with hammer and Rise. It wasn't what I mained, which does remind me, I don't think I've mentioned this, I try to main a different weapon in every single one of these games. My first game was 3 Ultimate, I mained the Switch Axe. My second game was Generations, and I ended up maining the Greatsword in that. Then I played World, and I mained the hammer in that. Then I played Generations Ultimate, continuing with Greatsword. Then I went to 4 Ultimate, which was a Charge Blade. And in Frontier, I'm still trying to pick, but I'm using a lot of Longsword in that game. And in Rise, I played Hunting Horn. And in Wilds, largely because of the changes they made to Shield, which I'll get into a bit later, I'm maining the Gunlance. But I've been varying what weapons I use a lot more as I go throughout the series. I always find myself going back to Switch Axe, it's my baby, and I really loved Hammer in World and Rise, but I do not find myself using Hammer much in Wilds, because there are cool changes, but the overall feel of using the weapon is less fun to me than it used to be. Negative stuff aside, let's get into some of the changes I like, starting with the new shield functionality. I fucking love what they've done with the shields in this game. Perfect guards, stalwart guards, power clashes. Blocking attacks has always been useful, but man do they make it satisfying and fucking badass in this game. Blocking flame breaths from New Udra and laser beams from Gravios while actively pushing against it and advancing into the fire is some of the most fun and hype moments you can have in this game, and it's going to feel kinda bad going back to any of the previous games where shields don't have these functions, especially Power Clash. I'm gonna be honest, I think Power Clash is the absolute best mechanic they've added with this game. In a similar way that people like to say the best thing since sliced bread, I'm gonna coin the Monster Hunter version of this. Power Clashes are the best thing since mounting. Mounting was a game-changing mechanic and it became a mainstay for a reason. Power Clashes feel the same way to me. I fucking love it. The only thing I don't love about it is that you can't do Power Clashes on like over half of the monsters in the game. Of course, massive monsters like Jindahat and Gravios, it makes sense that I can't Power Clash them. But I do think many of these monsters, especially the Brute Wyverns, could have and should have had Power Clashes. But that's just me wanting more of the awesome thing I love. Moving on to some of the other mechanics they've changed. Focus mode is really cool and very useful, and it kind of de-gamifies the hunting a bit. Why would a real hunter just keep attacking in the same direction when the monster has moved? They would probably adjust their footing to keep hitting where the monster actually is. Let's be real, as much as I think movement commitment adds to a game, it does get annoying going for an attack just to have it miss because the monster coughed and is now a few frames too far to the side to land the attack. but holy fuck, the effect this has had on the greatsword feels like cheating. It does seem like they factored that into the damage of the weapon. It's not quite as overpowered per hit as it used to be as a trade-off for how landing hits is much easier now, but man, people used to call playing greatsword brain-dead caveman mode, and I've always said they were wrong, because you needed a deep understanding of the monster and timing and positioning to get proper use out of the greatsword, but, yeah, no, they're kind of right for that now. Greatsword is absolutely brain-dead unga-bunga mode now. Overall, though, focus mode is cool. I could take it or leave it. I'm fine if it becomes a mainstay. I'm fine if it leaves in future titles. I love Monster Hunter either way. Moving on to Seikrets. Seikrets are great. The best mounts yet. World's Raider rides helped me navigate Ancient Forest's maze, which I still get lost in after 400 or 500 hours of playing that game. I've never been able to map out that freaking map in my mind. But they were autopilot, which didn't give you much control. Rise's Palamutes were cooler. You had full control. I named mine Juniper after my own dog, a rat terrier. Despite them looking nothing like rat terriers, they of course look absolutely nothing like Malamutes, despite that being their namesake. They instead look more like weird blue Dobermans. Anyway, I loved crafting monster armor for them, but they felt redundant in fights. Like, beyond being a mount and being cute doggos, they were universally less useful than Palicos. They do fit Rise's vibe, but not so much Monster Hunter's vibe as a whole, in my opinion. Seikrets, I think, do fit the vibe and aesthetic of Monster Hunter far more, while also being larger than the Palamutes, which addresses the problem I had. Not so much a problem, but just something that, like, occasionally would take me out of the moment and be like, man, these dogs are way too small to be carrying my hunter in this massive armor with this massive weapon. This looks goofy. The Seikrets don't have that problem. They're big enough that it makes more sense. It's more believable. And on top of being more believable, they still fill all of the same functions that Palamutes did, while no longer being redundant to the Palicos. Letting you sharpen or heal on the move, which I feel like is the developers filling the void left by no longer being able to dip out of the zone through a load screen to heal and sharpen in safety like we did in old games. I do want mounts to stay with Seikrets as the model. I think it would be cool to explore old maps with them, like imagine climbing the summit of the ruined pinnacle and then gliding off of it. That would be so awesome. The only complaints I have is that there is no sit and stay function with them like we had with the Palamutes. This big-ass motherfucker just won't let me take photos or go fishing in peace. Stop getting in front of my camera, you damn beautiful creature! I'll take pictures of you when I want to. Speaking of beautiful creatures, let's move on to Fashion Hunter. I love that they've ungendered the armor while still keeping the gendered designs, because I like both styles. I was always someone who kind of defended the gendered armor thing because I didn't want to lose either side. I used to swap genders per game, like in 3U, 4U, and World I played as a guy, and in Generations Ultimate, Frontier, and Rise I played as a girl, because I wanted to see and use as many of the armor designs as I could. But I did regret it sometimes. Like in World, the Radabon female armor was so much cooler than the Radabon male armor. And in Generations, holy fuck, Gammoth, the fuck did they do to you? The male armor set for Gammoth is this badass, menacing tank. And the female armor set looks like a badminton ball with a hat on. What the fuck is even that? In Wilds, though, because they ungendered the armors, I picked a girl, because I think girls can pull off most guy sets, but guys can't really pull off quite as many girl sets. Though there have been times I've been tempted to switch to a guy for one set or another. The Fashion Hunter scene in Wilds is thriving, with layered armor, primary and secondary dyes that actually major change the look of the armors and not just some accents like it was in the old games. I've already gotten over 40 layered armor set presets in Wilds, probably more like 20 if we don't count the ones that are full sets from one monster, just with like different pieces of the set, like the male and female ones mixed and stuff. I freaking love Fashion Hunter. Slay Hunter, strut yo stuff. Love it. Anyway, I do see some people who dislike this, and I get it. It used to be that when you were in a match with someone, you could glance at them and understand their build. You could understand if they were an idiot or not based on the gear they were using. You could know what skills they had. Layered armor loses that. The fact that layered weapons is confirmed to be getting added down the line will make it worse. But it was also kind of lost with them redoing how abilities worked in general back in World, making it so that builds have like 10 plus skills on them decided primarily by decorations, rather than what the old games had, with each build having only like 2 to 4 skills on average, decided primarily by the armor you wore. And while I see why some people dislike that, it's not something that matters all that much to me. If I'm truly interested in seeing someone's build, I'll just check their profile in the menus. I personally love going into my lobbies and hunts and they look like a cosplay convention happened to be double booked with a fashion show. Some people aura farming their unique sets and other people trying to look like the Space Marines and Helldivers and Ezio Auditore. I love it. I've actually been trying to convert one of my friends into playing the game by convincing her it's basically a fancy dress-up game, which, let's be real, it might as well be. Fashion Hunter is the true endgame. We all know it. Let's not pretend. And speaking of endgame, let's get into the endgame of this video. Overall, I would give the game an 8.5, maybe 9 out of 10. It's fantastic. It just continues a few things from previous post-New World games that I'm not a fan of, that I do think hinder the overall experience, at least for me. If you disagree, or agree for that matter, feel free to tell me in the comments. I'd love to hear your opinions, and if you would like to see more videos from me, like the monster tier list video that I'm working on, which is why I didn't talk much about the monsters in this game, then consider liking this video and subscribing. If you want to see when that video comes out, it's probably going to be next week, but you could hit the bell, I don't know. I'd never hit the bell on anyone's channels, so I completely wouldn't blame you. But anyway, if you do go watch that video, I'll be glad to see you there. If not, that's the end of this one. Have a good one, guys. Goodbye.